off in the Breeders' Cup.
Welcome to the Racing Dudes YouTube channel. My name is Curtis Kalleward, aka Magic, and I'm very excited to have with me today a special guest named Justin Christein, who is an expert horse trip handicapper. He's here to tell us about his 5 races at the Breeders' Cup, specifically 5 horses whose trips he thinks are important to playing them at good odds. Justin, welcome to the show. I'm happy to have you. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Curtis. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm excited to talk trips for Breeders' Cup. We'll uncover a little bit of value, some hidden tough trips that aren't necessarily gleaned from the past performances. So I'm excited to dig in.
I am too, and it's almost impossible, right? If you haven't been watching horse racing all year, you get to this point and you want to start watching replays, you cut corners, and sometimes you read the trip notes that are in the past performances, and that's where Justin comes in. Is he's going to find you those trips that aren't going to show up in the past performance notes. So, Justin, what is the first race that you want to talk about, and specifically the horse that you want to talk about?
Let's talk about the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint and Fast Boat.
Perfect. Go for it. What race from Fast Boat caught your attention here?
His most recent. So it's the Turf Sprint from Kentucky Downs, where he finished 4th, beaten 2 3/4. The comment line reads tight quarters, but his trip was brutal. It was nearly an impossible turf trip. So he was off inside and then behind horses, and he was on a really strong hold early. He had no space to get into a comfortable gallop. And a lot of times when that happens, excess energy is exerted, and I think that's exactly what happened here. So he found a bit of open air approaching the top of the stretch, but he quickly found himself surrounded by foes and in an in-between spot, and in-between spots can often be uncomfortable for horses. So mid-stretch, he finally found some room, one off the rail, but he ran the entire stretch sandwiched between 2 other horses. This was a tough position for him to try to get his late kick going. And he even seemed to take a bad step in deep stretch. It was a horrible turf trip, which left him no chance. And he ran very well to finish 4th, beaten 2 3/4, despite being in a tough position throughout. The comment line just reads tight quarters, kept on, if you're looking, depending on what PPs you're looking at. And it was way worse than that. I'm excited to play this horse in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint.
Well, there's a good one to get going, and I know that at least one person on the Racing Dudes team is a big fan of that horse in this race. If you want to find out who, go to the Racing Dudes YouTube channel. Check out the preview for the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. You'll find out who likes it. Justin, take us through another horse that's competing at the Breeders' Cup. Which race you're looking at and why you think that the trip is better than what it looks.
All right, let's go to the Breeders' Cup Turf Mile, and let's look at the last effort from Hit the Road, Southern California horse. So he broke sharp, and he showed good early speed, and Giroux kept glancing toward the outside just out of the gate, presumably looking at Smooth Like Straight to see what he was going to do early. So they lined up 4 across the track, approaching the first turn, and then when Giroux sensed that he was in between a 4-horse stack, he didn't want to go there, and he pulled Hit the Road out of that in-between spot. Hit the Road subsequently fought restraint, as a lot of times horses do. They resent being asked a little bit and then having the jock pull on them to wrangle them back. And so he fought Giroux and pulled him around the first turn and almost up onto horse's heels. He tracked in last along the rail up the backside, and then on the far turn, again, Giroux got slightly tentative, and he wasn't sure whether to press forward to keep rail position or to sit and come around the field. And that tentativeness cost him some position. The comment line right there says lacked room 5/16. But it was more of a rider's tactical error. He was indecisive at that point, and it cost him some position. So he was indeed forced to circle to the outside for the stretch drive. And at this point, Mo Forza had already started his run. And to my eye, he finished just as well as Mo Forza, with a no-chance turf trip versus this level of competition. He loves Del Mar, and he's tactical enough the connections make a switch to Johnny V instead of Drew. I don't think they were too thrilled about that ride either, and I can understand why. So I think Hit the Road presents a lot of value in the Breeders' Cup Turf Mile.
Well, and that's especially good information to know if you're like me and you really like Mo Forza and Smooth Like Straight in the Breeders' Cup Mile. They were just a tiny bit ahead of Hit the Road, and it sounds like he had a lot worse of a trip, so good information moving forward. Justin, give me a third one. What's another one you like here?
Okay, let's go to the Juvenile Turf on Friday. Another Southern California horse, McKinnon, for Doug O'Neill. So part of this trouble is going to be obvious because it is stated in the PPs, but I'm not sure you can understand how brutal it was until you watch the head-on and the pan shot. So he showed nice handiness out of the gate, and he allowed Hernandez to guide him to the inside to secure rail position around the first turn. Midway around the first turn, though, he clipped heels, nearly went down, and cost him 3+ lengths and a lot of position. But the credit to this horse, he showed a lot of athleticism to maintain his forward motion. So at that point, he rode the rail to the top of the stretch where he was swung out. And as soon as Hernandez popped him a few times with the crop, he took off. I mean, he really lengthened his stride, reaching out into deep stretch. His gallop out was huge all the way around the turn. And if it wasn't for Hernandez pulling him up, he would have galloped out down the backstretch. And so, his ears were up, and that's an indication to me of a horse who is thriving and is ready to do a lot more. So the trouble on the first turn was important, and it was significant. But the way he finished and lengthened his stride and lowered his head and then his gallop out tells me that this horse is sitting on another big effort.
Named for the first overall pick of the Colorado Avalanche, Nathan McKinnon, owned by his teammate Eric Johnson. Yeah, this is going to be a horse that's very interesting because he's a local. He's got plenty of experience over the turf course, so we'll see what happens. Justin, give me another one that you like. I love it.
So let's take a look at consumer spending from the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies turf. This is from her most recent race at Laurel. She broke well and then was held up by the jock between horses, and she was bumped hard twice. And this is not noted in the PPs. And sometimes when a horse is bumped hard, especially out of the gate or early on, there's no telling what kind of a negative effect this can have on the horse. So she recovered to travel alone in 6 down the backside. Approaching the far turn, she got some company from a horse who moved early, about the half-mile pole this was. So it was a little prior to the far turn, which forced the rider to also start moving earlier than he probably wanted to. So then they chose a 2-path around the turn and swung out to the top of the stretch. And when they did, this horse launched a wicked turn of foot. The jock was wrapped up on this horse inside the 16th pole, and when the jock wrapped up, the horse's ears went straight up in the air and gave every indication that there was much more in the tank. I think this horse is a big talent. I know Chad Brown has 2 in here. He has the Maiden Breaker Haughty as well. And that horse might get some extra attention, and rightly so. But I'm hoping this horse goes a little under the radar because I think he's a big talent. That race, although it was against inferior company, the way he did it really caught my eye.
All right, Justin, we got one more. We're up to 4. Give me one more here. Okay,
so let's go to a Euro in the Juvenile Fillies turf, Malavat. This was in her most recent 6 furlong race. So she raced on the inside along the rail while 4th, and they were a bunched group. Now, when the real running started, she was hemmed in and had to wait for a seam to open. So at this point, the jock pulled out his crop, and when he hit her left-handed, she again had to wait briefly before finding room. So the jock then gave her 2 more pops left-handed, and she punched through this hole, this seam, to win easily, with the jock only hand riding without really getting any running underway. This horse barely got into a full stride when the line hit, and so I think this horse has got much more to offer. And she comes out of a few 6 furlong races, so the stretch out to a mile is going to be something that she's going to have to negotiate. But I think the tight turns and the firm course at Del Mar will help a horse like this, who 1 mile might be their limit, to perhaps get a mile here when they wouldn't normally be able to get it in Europe.
Well, Justin, thank you so much for giving us 5 horses that you think are really important to take a look at and really examine the replays beyond just what the past performances say on the chart. Hopefully it was helpful for the fans as well. I have a feeling this won't be the only or last time that we see you here. Before I let you go, I've got to ask, one lock of the whole Breeders' Cup weekend, who is it?
Well, we did a trip note on McKinnon, and I think he's a major player in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile turf. But I really like Modern Games. He got a great post breaking from the 1 hole, and I think he's a whole lot of horse for these other horses to contend with. So I think a Modern Games, McKinnon, Exacta, and tying those 2 up as A's in your multi-race exotics is a great way to try to get some value and make some money on Friday, build that bankroll for Saturday.
Perfect. Thanks so much for joining us once more, Justin. And we'll see everybody next time here. Make sure you smash the like button on your hit subscribe, ring the notification bell so you never miss a Racing Dudes show.